Now, let's start with treasury bonds. An investment club, when you have a long-term view, when you take a step back and you have set up your long-term plans, which are vision, and say 15, 20 years, we have to have maybe $1 billion, 10 billion, 2 million US dollars, whatever, in kind of how you are going to kind of set it up. Then, when you are to buy treasury bonds, you know which bonds you're going to buy. You're going to end up buying long-term treasury bonds because they fit into that exact plan. For one reason, long-term treasury bonds are the ones which give the most profits. 10% tax on a 15% yield, or what we talk about the return every single year. So when you're an investment club and you have a long-term vision, and you know your immediate short-term goals, and just to make sure you contribute their contributions, there should be no way you should be buying a treasury bill. Zero whatsoever. Why? A treasury bill, you are paying a tax of 20% on it, and at the same time you are making getting a return of 14%. Actually, there was a treasury bill auction last week on Wednesday. It had a yield of 15%, and when you take off tax of 20%, people were getting around 11-12% return after tax. So then all of a sudden you're like, if our goal is to invest for long term, there should be no way I'm buying a treasury bill. There should be no way I'm buying a 2-year treasury bond. There should be no way I'm buying a 3-year treasury bond, because it doesn't fit into your structure. Then all of a sudden you're like, but in 5 years, that a 5-year bond can make sense because, one, it has more profits, 14% return. That means if you compound that money, every 5 years, you're almost doubling the money. 10-year bonds and above, then that's much better. So then all of a sudden you sit back and say, if every single month we contribute 4.8 million, you can even come up with a structure as simple as saying, Jan, Feb, March, we are buying long-term bonds that are feeding into our long-term goal. April, May, June, we are buying medium-term bonds that are feeding into medium-term goals, that 5-year goals. Then September, October, November, we are going to put it in a unit trust to feed us into what are short-term objectives or short-term cash needs. But all in all, your goal is in the designing. When you are to come to the treasury bonds make money, completely make money. But they make money when someone understands which bond makes money. And the bonds that make money, especially for the clubs, where if you have to maximize return, are the long-term bonds. Right now, we are in 2025. We are about to go into the elections. The long-term bonds are offering around 17% yield, which is what we call the actual return. 17% when you take off tax, it comes to around 15%. So that means if you, as a club, you have 100 million right now, you can go, 50 million. Let's use the number, the equivalent number, 50 million, and you buy a long-term treasury bond. It means you, in the next 10 years, you're going to double and triple this money you're starting with by just buying the right bond. But at the same time, the benefit that you have as an investment club, that the group, the people who are following you, the members are patient. They should have the patient capital to know, let the leaders grow this money. It's not the same way when someone invests for themselves, knowing that when they get the coupon, they have to eat it or spend on it for school fees, medical, everything. Here, you have the patient capital to say, for the next 10 years, if I'm starting with 50 million, this 50 million should be equivalent of 200 million in the next 15 years. That is value for money. Then you say, any contribution going forward, this, I'm designing it in such a way to say, I should only be buying bonds that are maxed, that at a minimum, set a bare minimum, and say at a minimum, we should not be getting anything less than 14% return after tax. So even when you go to the market to buy a treasury bond, you know that's the bare minimum. Alternatively, you can say, any investment we are making for long term that is 10 years and above should never have a return less than 12%. Why? I can get that in a unit trust. I can put that money with Old Mutual, Cornerstone, Sanlam, Britam, Zeno, and they will give me my 11%. So why should I make anything, an investment that can't give me that? That also comes back to the comparative of your investments. Some of the best investment clubs have invested in land. Then you have to ask them that you bought land of 20 million. 5 years later, that land is 35 million. What is the return on that land growth? Then it's around 8%. Then that means you are losing money. For an investment club, your goal is to invest. You want to go where you maximize the profits. Right now in Kampala, anything that doesn't give you a 10% return, which you can get in a unit trust for an investment club, you are leaving money on the table. You can get exactly that by putting it in a unit trust. Alternatively, you also must be willing to assess the investment goals, the investment options you have to make. For example, when you say I'm coming to a treasury bond and I'm buying a 10-year treasury bond, you automatically know what return it's going to be giving you every single year before you compound, before you reinvest the coupons straight away. Very good. When you are to come to a unit trust, automatically you can easily predict what is the return they're going to be giving you for the next 3 to 5 years. When you are to start a business, you have to be in a position to say, we are taking a little bit of more risk. What is the return that we are going to be expecting to get that is commensurate to the risk and the people giving this capital, that there is objective growth in this business? So the investment committee is always the one to come to task, and they say, and actually we always advise these days, investment committees, if they can, get an investment advisor, people who understand the market, to come help you to develop that structure, to help you develop that and say, let's sit back, let's come and for a full month, have conversations and help you develop your structure and your strategy. That way, the products that you end up investing in are feeding into the return growth of the members.